Hello, everyone. It's Colleen Blake and Eric Quick, and welcome to Bath Time to Boardroom, where we bring you stories of working parents or parents to be and how they now blend work and life and all of the challenges that come with it. It's season 5, and that means it's all about dads.
And I am super thrilled today to have Colleen back because she's taken some time off, well-deserved, this summer. And also super excited that we're talking with Brian Cornell today, father of 2, a boy and a girl, who now have their own families. He's a grandfather to 3 with another on its way, and his focus on other families is one of the leadership skills I admire most. In addition to being a great dad, Brian currently holds the role of board chairman and CEO at Target Corporation, where he heads a dynamic global team behind Target. Target has more than 1,900 stores covering all 50 American states, as well as a strong international presence. Overall, Target's purpose-driven team of more than 350,000 works daily to help all families discover the joy of everyday life.
Yes, Brian knows that the Target team and culture are central to their success, and Brian has spearheaded vast investments in wages, benefits, team training and development, diverse and equitable representation, and a corporate culture that helps all team members care, grow, and win together. I am so excited to have him on our show today because as a people leader, that is so near and dear to my heart. Brian is a career-long advocate of diversity and inclusion in corporate leadership. Brian is a board member for Catalyst and served on the council for the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. The Network of Executive Women honored Brian with the William J. Grise Gender Diversity Award, and he also received the Yale Legend in Leadership Award. Wow, Brian, kudos to you for all those accomplishments. We're really excited to have you here today and talk with us about the importance of how family and life and all the things that come with it has shaped who you are and has also shaped you as a leader in the boardroom. Welcome, Brian.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, and we're super excited because we're not going to grill you about numbers or earnings or any of that other stuff that I'm sure CNBC, wants to talk to you about. So we're here more to talk about bath time and your grandkids, as well as some boardroom and your career aspirations as well with where you're at today. So I'd love to jump into bath time first and learn a little bit more about your experience growing up in New York and how your grandparents and mom influenced who you are today.
Well, Eric, we can start there and I'll kind of rewind the clock. But I think about how I grew up. I would have never, ever imagined to be doing what I'm doing today. I grew up in a pretty challenging environment. I grew up without a dad. I had a mom who had a history of medical issues, and my grandparents, along with my mom, played such an influential role in my upbringing and creating the person I am today. So when I think back, I'm really thankful that I had support from my mom, my grandparents, great teachers and coaches along the way, and they really inspired me to do more in life. And despite some of those challenges, when I think back, I enjoyed those years and enjoyed school and enjoyed sports and enjoyed working when I was a young kid. And it's probably helped shape who I am today.
And when you were a kid, were you kind of the rule follower, the rule breaker? Obviously, it sounds like you may have had a bit of autonomy as a child growing up.
Eric, I learned pretty early that for me, I was looking for kind of that level playing field where the fact that I didn't have a dad, or I grew up, unfortunately, with, out a lot of money, I was looking for ways where, I could find that level playing field. So I was probably more a conformist. I wanted to excel in school and excel in sports and make sure if I worked, I did a great job. And I realized that those were the areas where the playing field was level, where nobody cared who my dad was or how much money we have or what car we drove. In a classroom or on a playing field or when I was working, those things didn't matter. It was all about great performance. And I really leaned into those areas and tried to make the most of it.
And what sports did you play when you were growing up?
Eric, I played just about everything. Now, nothing very well, but I played football and basketball and baseball and ran track. And, if there was a ball involved in a game I could play in, that's where I really love to focus my attention. So I'm a lifelong sports fan. I'm a huge, as I think UCLA fan. So I'm excited about the start of college football season, and I'm looking forward to watching our basketball team back on the court. But sports has been a big part of my life. And in fact, there was a point in time where I thought that's what I was going to do. I was going to coach. When I was on campus at UCLA, I was thinking about being a teacher and being a coach. When I stopped playing football, I was a high school football coach, and I really thought that was the direction I was going to head. But in some ways, today I get to coach great leaders and great teams. I get to be really active in that space. So I guess I've come full circle and recognized that a big part of what I've always wanted to do is be a coach. Definitely. And now I get to coach a great team at Target.
Tell us a little bit more about how your childhood has shaped how you coached your kids as they were growing up as well. Because, you've held pretty significant roles with major companies and, very different than obviously you growing up. How did you take a lot of those learnings and transition it into how you coached your kids about, I would say how fortunate they are growing up with some of the success that you've had?
Yeah. I think about, my kids and some of the things I wanted to make sure I did for my kids. I wanted them to have a lot of the experiences I couldn't afford to have as a kid. So, they've traveled the world as I've moved over the years and lived in Asia and Europe. I've tried to make sure that they understand kind of the diversity of life and respect for different cultures and the importance of diversity in our world. I've really tried to make sure I remind my kids how important it is to stay humble and grounded and be approachable and have those tough but authentic conversations. So hopefully, I've been a good role model over the years, and they recognize the importance of staying humble and grounded, making sure that they're caring parents and caring friends and can really engage in society in the right way. And because we've traveled and lived in so many different places, I think they've had a great appreciation for what our country here in the United States brings and all the core values that surround this country.
Definitely. And given that you didn't get a playbook for having kids, what would you wish you knew about having kids before you had them?
Yeah, I would say, Eric, and you had some young ones at home, it goes by really quickly. And I wish I could have slowed down the process. I don't know how, all those years went by so quick. And I wish I could have hit pause a few more times and had more time with my family. I was so actively engaged with my career and I traveled a lot. I know I missed a lot of special moments, and those are hard to recapture. So I wish I would have recognized earlier the importance of finding that balance and realizing that there were probably a few meetings I attended late in an afternoon or early in an evening that I could have missed and just simply said, I need to be at my son or my daughter's event at their school, at one of their sporting events. So I would have loved to recognize that earlier, and the importance of balance and a recognition that for those kids, life goes by really quickly and you get it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I actually, my eldest, I have 3 daughters, and my eldest is shipping off to college in a few weeks. She's going to UW, so she's staying on the West Coast. But is there any, if you look back now with your kids, when you speak with them, do they remember that you weren't there, or have you had the conversations of this is why? What advice can you give for those of us who are in these very big milestone moments to make sure that our kids know that we love them, we wish we could have been there for them, and sort of help relieve some of that guilt?
Colleen, I think it is a balance. I think if I brought my kids onto this podcast, they would talk about when I was there at certain events, but they also remember when I didn't make it, where I was somewhere else. I remember my son was playing in a championship basketball game when he was young, and I was coaching his team, and I couldn't be there for the final game. And I was in Beijing, China. I got the phone call. He took me through every moment of the game, but it always came back to, Dad, it would have been great if you were there. And I missed a few big events with my daughter over the years, and they remember when I was there, but they also always remember the big events that I missed. And they understood I was working and traveling, and I couldn't accommodate the schedule, but I'd love to have a do-over on more than one event
with the grandkids.
Well, I get a second chance.
A third, a fourth, and a fifth. It sounds like too.
Eric, who knows? I might be that coaching again.
There you go.
Ooh.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be good.
Which sport would you have coached, Brian?
I coached for my son a lot of basketball and a lot of baseball.
Okay.
So he's already trying to recruit me someday to be his assistant coach on the baseball field. And who knows, Colleen, I might come out of retirement.
There you go. There you go. No, I found it very humbling actually to coach my my daughter's soccer team when she was like 6 or 7, and my son's baseball team for a couple of years, where it was like, yeah, it really challenges you as a leader to like figure out how to get everybody on the same page when they're that young as well. So given a little bit of an extension of that kind of the career demands and the travel, we know your significant other, Martha, played a big role as well in the family. Like, how did you balance that, or kind of what kind of support for the kids were needed while you traveled?
Eric, at the end of the day, I couldn't do what I've done in my career without the support of my wife. And she had her own career. And after our second child, recognized that with my travel, with my schedule, one of us was going to have to stay at home. So, she's been instrumental in raising our kids and giving me the support I needed to continue to advance my career. So I think for most successful families, it is that great partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have, the right rules of engagement and understand how you're going to work together. But, it takes a great partner to raise kids successfully and strike that balance and have a successful career and also be successful at home.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, a lot of people think that by getting married and having kids, like it's going to strengthen your relationship, and it probably stresses it beyond belief. So curious if you have any suggestions on, whether it was date nights or other things like that, you can give our listeners on how to constantly nurture and kind of work through that relationship to strengthen it so that you can build a household on a strong foundation.
Yeah. In some ways, Eric, I think you can leverage some things from your kind of career and work and bring it back home. Mm-hmm. So planning is important. Good communication is important, but also being flexible and adaptable as needed. But I think, to have a great career and a great family environment, you need some of those same kind of processes in place. So good planning and good communication and understanding how you're going to allocate time and find those special date night moments and make sure, you're planning ahead. Just like we do in business, I think it's really important to take that same approach to how you manage your family time.
Definitely. One thing that, excuse me, on that note that I heard, and I can't remember exactly who it was from when I was at Safeway, that saw you and Martha downtown, I think it was Walnut Creek, holding hands and out for a daily stroll, was something they're like, oh, they were so cute. So anyways, clearly you've made some time for that with Martha, but I want to switch to your children and grandchildren. What makes you most proud about your kids as they've grown up into adults and now their own, their parents themselves? What is most notable that you've seen from them?
Well, I think, Eric, for you and Colleen, you're going to experience this in the years to come, but there's nothing quite like watching your kids become parents and starting their own family and seeing them with their kids. So, Colleen, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but when it does, it's an incredibly rewarding time in your life. Just to see your kids get married and become parents and raise their children. And for me, that's just been a special part of my life.
How has that dynamic changed though? So when they've become parents and they've gotten married, can you give us a sneak peek into how the conversation changes, or what the feeling and the relationship has shifted to?
So, Colleen, here's a little spoiler alert. I actually thought, my kids went off to college, and when they graduate, they'd start their own lives, and I'd be less involved.
Yeah.
It's the exact opposite.
What?
As if today, Martha and I are more involved in the lives of our kids and grandkids than ever before. And it's something I really relish. But, I had this vision that, our kids would grow up and, I'd see less of them and we would interact less often. For us, it's the exact opposite. And I feel like we're even more engaged with both of our kids and their children, and we see them all the time. It's actually been one of the the benefits that you've heard probably from others during COVID is, I've watched my little granddaughter go from learning how to crawl and stand and walk and run. And I probably didn't experience that with my kids. So it's been really fun to recognize just how engaged we can still be in their lives and in the lives of our grandchildren.
Oh, that's okay. That's great to hear. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you, Brian.
Was there ever a time when you or Martha said to your kids, I can't wait till you have kids? And is it coming full circle now?
Yeah. I don't know if we were coaching them in that direction, Eric, but we were certainly, it's been a real pleasure to have. Now we're weeks away from our fourth grandchild being born. Mm-hmm. So my son's got a son and a daughter. My daughter has a daughter and is about to have a son. So they'll have one of each. And it's a great balance for us. And we're really excited.
Cool. How are your kids different or similar? Given you have a boy and a girl. And is the oldest a boy or a girl?
My daughter Megan is the oldest, and my son JC is the younger.
Okay.
And you know that I've lived in lots of different places. My PepsiCo career took me to Asia and Europe. The kids have seen different parts of the United States. And I would say my daughter loves the idea of getting on a plane and adventuring out. And she could call me tomorrow morning and say, Dad, I'm going off to London or Paris for a week, and it wouldn't surprise me. My son, on the other hand, I think he'll likely live in the same town and maybe in the same house for the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. And thought it was great, wouldn't change anything, but the idea of spending a lot of time on planes and traveling around is probably not on his short list. He'd rather be at home with his kids watching a Tampa Bay Buccaneer game in the background.
There's actually 2 Tampa Bay fans in the U.S. One of my friends is a Tampa Bay fan too. I didn't know that there was very many of them.
Yeah. Up until last year, the club was pretty small, but my son's been a lifelong Tampa Bay fan. So that's been a really tough road for the last 20 years, but last year changed everything.
All it takes is one leader on the team, right?
All it takes is great leadership.
Oh, that's too funny. Tell us a little bit more now that you have almost 4 grandkids. Any funny things that I would imagine there's some sound bites that come up when you're visiting or when they're around you. Any funny things that they've said to you that you're just like, oh my gosh?
Well, I'll tell you the most recent story, and I've got a great picture. I should probably send it to you. I was on CNBC last week, and my grandson, who's 4 years old, is watching, Papa on TV, and wondering, what's he going to say and why is he there? My granddaughter, who's a little over 2, was wondering where my wife was because she saw me on TV and figured, well, grandma can't be far away. So those have been fun and special moments.
Tell us a little bit more about what rules, grandma and grandpa rules, that you and Martha have with the grandkids that are like, you know what, it's our time with them and we're going to employ this rule.
Eric, why would we put any rules in place?
Oh, you're one of those grandparents.
Absolutely. Okay, Megan, here they are, back to you. We had quite a lot of fun with them. Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. Really appreciate you sharing more about your childhood and your kids and your grandkids. I think, Colleen, it's time for Boardroom.
Yes, but before we dive into the boardroom, let's hear what our sponsor, Brainiac Food, has to say.
When the only fish your kids will eat are gold, give them a Brainiac. Choose from snack favorites like applesauce and peanut butter that have a boost of omega-3s, choline, and other brain-building nutrients. To learn more, visit brainiacfoods.com.
All right. So thanks so much, Brian, for sharing a little bit about your life at home or in the bath time. But now we switch gears to the boardroom. Let's go back to how you decided to go from perhaps being a coach or a teacher to pursuing a career in the consumer packaged goods retail industry.
So, Colleen, I talked about the fact that my last couple of years on campus at UCLA, I was coaching high school football, but I was also working in retail. And I spent a lot of time in college working in retail, getting to understand how the retail environment worked, and also seeing some of the vendors who were calling on stores, each and every day that I was working. So I had a real interest in the space. And it was kind of a natural step for me when I graduated to say, all right, I want to get into the consumer packaged good world. And I really had an interesting balance in the course of my career. I spent just about 2/3 of my career in the CPG world and about a third in retail. And I've enjoyed both of them. But the role I have today is clearly, the ultimate role for me, and one that I've enjoyed so much to have a chance to work with such an iconic brand like
Yes.
Target and an amazing team that is purpose driven and really has an amazing culture and set of values.
Yes, so I'd love to talk about that because one of the things that I've noticed, Target over the years has just changed from just being a place that okay, I have to go do these list of things, to now it's like, well, what does Target have to offer today? And let's just go check it out and do some window shopping. I was just saying earlier that back to school is upon us, and stuff behind me, which is blurred out, is from Target. What are some of the things that you've done to create this culture and this experience so that people, consumers, and your teams feel like Target is more of an experiential environment versus just a logistical thing that you have to go through? What are some of the things that you've done to help make that shift?
Well, Colleen, the company has a long history of providing both the things that you need and the things that you want. And I think that unique portfolio, the fact that we're in the apparel business and we're in the home business, we're a big hardline toy and electronics retailer. We have all those personal care and household essentials you need, plus food and beverage. So the unique portfolio is something that really stands out with many consumers across the country. But the brand has always had such a iconic nature. It has been about experience and very much focused on the guests that we serve. And just going back to the kind of the founding of the company, it's all about both those things that you expect, but also delivering it at great value. And I've had a chance, obviously, to work with the team over the last 7, now 8 years to really think about how do we modernize Target and build off of that great foundation, the strength of the company, but modernize our stores and build new stores in markets where we weren't participating in the past, building our own brands and strengthening our national brand connections, and making sure that in this new omni-channel and digital environment, we leverage our stores to provide great and easy fulfillment options. So you can place an order right now while we're doing this podcast.
Yeah.
A couple hours later,
Pick it up.
pick up that order in one of our 1,900 stores, or as a busy mom or dad, pull into the parking lot into our drive-up lane, and one of our team members will put that order in your trunk within a couple of minutes. So really trying to think about how do we modernize the company, but importantly, how do we make sure we continue to invest in our team? And we've had tremendous success over the last few years. And despite some of the challenges that the pandemic has thrown our way, our team has been incredibly agile and flexible and has adapted to the environment. But our success has really been driven by an amazing team that's committed to serving those families and bringing them that little bit of joy every day in their lives, and being true to our culture and focus on caring and growing and providing an environment where we win together. So it's been a lot of fun for me to be part of really modernizing the company and shaping a new Target that's ready to compete in a very different retail and consumer environment.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's so wonderful to hear how you've really been focused on continuing to care and grow the team as you work through this transformation. What are some of the things that parenting has taught you in leadership that you've now taken into the work that you're doing there?
Yeah. I'll go back to some of the lessons that I've learned during the pandemic. And I don't think any of us could have ever imagined what the last now 18 months has been like. And for many of us working remotely and not doing the things that we've done for most of our careers. But I've recognized how important culture is.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know how important it is to be, more empathetic, be a great listener, constant communication, and providing the support for our team so they can be resilient in this environment. So I think we've learned, and I've certainly learned, the importance of culture in an environment where there is so much uncertainty, but how important it is to be really empathetic and be a great listener and understand some of the challenges our teams are facing, and how can we be there to support them during these challenging times.
Yes, so true about the empathy and the listening. Are there things that that you've now also taken back in sort of in the reverse as a leader in business, and now into the way that you advise your kids, or what you've brought back home as a parent and leader?
I think I've learned both in my professional and personal life, just how challenging things have been for so many Americans, so many team members, and members of my family. For so many years, if you and I got together, the first thing you'd say is, "Well, how are you doing today?"
Yeah.
And normally the answer would be, "Oh, I'm doing great." But now when you ask that question, you might get some very different answers as people talk about the challenges they faced during COVID, or the fact that they may have a loved one who's contracted the virus or has been hospitalized. So I think we've recognized, we just need to slow down a little bit and really make sure we understand how we're doing and how our friends and family are dealing with the new challenges that are in front of us. And unfortunately, as we all know, it's not over yet. And that resilience factor, how do you manage your energy so that we can continue to deal with some of the challenges that, for most of us, we've never encountered before in our lives?
You bring up something that's really interesting with the whole the resilience and managing your energy, because as leaders, we're often looking after others and we're looking after our teams, but no one is necessarily always looking after us, right? Because the higher up you go, the lesser and lesser folks around you. How do you, as a leader, then get that sense of re-energizing, or some sense of relief when you're at the top? Like, what advice can you give those of us who are higher up in their roles and don't always have others to look around to help sort of be that sounding board? What advice do you have?
Colleen, we've talked a lot about the importance of self-care during the pandemic. And I think as leaders, first, we've got to role model that behavior. And, I've spent a lot of time with my direct reports, our officers, our team, reminding people that, one, you've got to take some time for yourself. And you've got to make sure, if you're going to be a great leader in this environment, you are taking the time to recharge, and you're managing your personal energy.
Yeah.
And you're actually listening to your own advice about the things that we have to do to make sure in this environment, we can be there each and every day and be at our best when we have to be. So I think managing your energy is critically important. And I've been a big proponent of something called the corporate athlete. In fact, Eric, I think I took you through it years ago. And it's a program out of Orlando, a group called the Human Performance Institute. And they talk about how important it is to actually prepare for business roles like an athlete would for a big event. So how do you manage sleep and nutrition? How do you manage your personal energy so that when we have to be at our best, we can be prepared for that big business moment and those big decisions? So energy management, I think, is really important, and probably more important than ever before in this environment where there's so much uncertainty and volatility. So I try to be a good example about exercising and getting enough rest, and the importance of nutrition. And it's different for everyone, but to me, it's all about how do I fuel my energy so that I can be at my best to support my team each and every day.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, it sounds like I need to enroll in the corporate athlete program to make sure I'm managing my energy well. What has been, I guess, some of or I guess, how do we say this? Let's demystify the boardroom a little bit. What are some insights or learnings, or even sort of top of mind issues in the boardroom that people don't necessarily think of as being a topic or area of focus when you are in the boardroom, right? Because there's this whole, the boardroom, let's see what the board has to say. Anything you can share there?
Well, I'll give you a couple of insights from both our target board, and I also chair the board for Young Brands. So I've looked at it from a couple of different perspectives over the last couple of years. And I think when many people think about the role of a board and what happens in a boardroom, they're expecting that, all the conversation is going to be around strategies and financial investments and financial performance. I think more and more the conversations have tilted to talent and people and retention, and are we doing the right things to create a healthy workforce and team environment? And I think boards are spending more time talking about culture and the importance of culture, and how do we make sure that we're continuing to invest in the development of our team. A lot of attention on the diversity and inclusion metrics, and how do you create that diverse environment that reflects the consumer you serve. So while strategy is still important and boards are always going to focus on investments and financial returns, I think more and more that focus on team and the importance of D&I, those are big, big parts of what takes place inside of a boardroom.
Oh, I love hearing that. So I'm the head of people for a startup here in the Bay Area, and one of the things that I've seen recently is this big shift over the last 18 months of more conversation around the people and teams. And any advice on how one could advocate for more programs that support the investment in people and teams and culture? Because I know it always comes back to the bottom line. So how any advice on how we can make that clearer, tie more tangible?
So you said it always comes back to the bottom line.
Yeah.
But I have a personal belief that that bottom line is driven always by the talent and the team and the people that you surround that organization with. And in a role like yours, and I actually believe, one of the most important roles today in corporate America within any company, is that chief human resource officer, and the person who wakes up every day as my partner thinking about the team and how do we attract and retain great talent? How do we make sure we're developing the leaders of the future? How do we make sure it's a company in an environment where people say, I want to be part of that? And I think that's more important than ever before. And that bottom line, to me, is always a byproduct of the team and the people. I've certainly learned over the years that while strategy is important, you've got to have the right capabilities to support the strategy. It always comes down to the team and creating that inclusive environment that attracts great talent, that attracts diverse talent. I think those are the most important areas we can focus on going forward.
Love that. Love it.
Hey, Brian, I got a quick question for you. How does the human resource team at Target celebrate you?
Eric, it's a great question. I think, I feel so fortunate to be in this role and to be included in such a diverse organization that can be a role model. So, I think, I get celebrated as we recognize the entire team. And, I recognize this is not about me. And the results of the company are driven by thousands and thousands of team members each and every day. And I'm there to support them. I'm there to make sure they have the support that they need, the direction, the resources to be successful. So I feel like I get celebrated each and every day just watching our team, out there serving our guests and taking care of each other and reflecting the culture of the company.
And so would you say that kind of fuels your power to look forward and figure out how you can create this bigger nucleus that continues to throw off positive energy?
Yeah. I think building that flywheel, Eric, that just continues to build, greater and greater strength and more momentum. I mean, that's what fuels me.
Cool.
But I'm fortunate. I'm in a role that I absolutely love, and I work with a great team that has common values and approaches, and that gives me tremendous energy each and every day.
Awesome.
Oh, I love it. Building the flywheel. That's right. What one, if you can, one leadership attribute would you say is the most important for us to really practice and exercise during this time? What would you offer our listeners there?
I might think about kind of two A's. One, I think you've got to be really authentic. And I think in today's environment, you have to stay really approachable. I think we've got to make sure that we show up as the authentic leaders that we are, and we've got to create an environment, Colleen, where people are really comfortable coming forward, and you're approachable, and people will come to you with both the good news and where they have challenges. And I think you've got to stay really grounded to create that kind of environment where people say, all right, one, I'm comfortable coming to Brian or coming to Eric or Colleen.
Yeah.
And I know, they're going to be great listeners and they're going to be there to support me going forward. So being authentic, being accessible, I think is really important in this environment.
Oh, I like that. The 2 A's. I'm all about easy to remember things. The 2 A's. Okay. That's great. Brian, I have all kinds of questions for you, but I know we're also running out of time here. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric for rapid fire 5.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait.
All right. So we're going to give you rapid fire 5 is 5 to 7 or however many questions I decide in rapid succession to available answers, but only one could be selected. Obviously, you don't know what the questions are. So we will get started as soon as you're ready. Let me know.
Let's do it.
Okay. Who would you rather have lunch with, Bill Walton or Thomas Edison?
Bill Walton.
Okay. Favorite date night with you and Martha, walk on the beach or a good movie?
Walk on the beach.
Awesome. Red or white wine?
White.
36 holes of golf or run a marathon?
36 holes of golf.
I thought you'd say that. Would you rather have, with Jeff Wayne probably, would you rather have diaper duty again or teenage years again?
I'll take teenage years.
Okay. And the last question for you, when you take your kids and grandkids to a college football game, do you take them to Notre Dame Stadium or Rose Bowl, UCLA versus USC?
I think you know the answer. It's going to be the latter. I'll be at that UCLA game.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for playing Rapid Fire 5 with us today. And I think it's time, Colleen, for Pocket Perspectives.
Yes, Pocket Perspectives. We end every episode with something that is easy to remember, that resonates with our listeners, that can be words of advice that we can take forward with us from today. So, Brian, what would be your pocket perspective today?
Since you've referenced UCLA a couple of times, I'll probably go back to something that I heard John Wooden talk about, who was obviously an incredibly successful college coach. But when he was asked to define success, he really talked about having the peace of mind that you gave it your very best each and every day. And to me, that is a great way to define success. It's not how high you climb or Eric, how fast you ran that marathon, but knowing that you did your very best, I think is really important for all of us. And particularly in an environment like this, where for many of us, we're doing things for the very first time. And we may not have all the answers and we don't have all the experience, but if we know that we've shown up and brought our very best each and every day to support our team, to support the business and our families, to me, that's a really good definition of success.
Oh, that's great. Yes, doing our very best. Thank you. So my pocket perspective is a couple of things you said. One is the importance of culture. And I think the way that you've brought it to target is through the 2 A's, your authenticity and approachability. So that's something that I'm going to take away from our discussion today, both at home and in the office. So thanks, Brian.
Yes. And for me, it's something that I've obviously been exposed to previously with Brian, but I want to remind our listeners how important it is, especially when you have kids, especially little ones, is really taking time for yourself and self-care and building that relationship stronger with your partner. The food, the nutrition, the exercise, all fueling the energy that you bring to the table and being able to actually achieve your success, especially, as we've talked previously on the show where, they always tell you to put your mask on first. And then your kids, and you're like, that's counterintuitive. But if you're not in the right headspace, you can't take care of your families. And so that's my key takeaway for today and my pocket perspective.
Yes. All right. Well, a special thank you to Brian for being our guest today. It was so great talking with you. And for our listeners, don't forget, it is back to school, back to college, back to everything. So make sure to visit your local Target and experience that awesome culture that Brian has led throughout all these years at Target. So thanks, everyone. That's a wrap. Until next time, whether it's at bath time or in the boardroom, remember to cherish these moments and make a splash. Bye, everyone. Hey, Eric. I think it's time for me to hear some jokes because I could use a little laugh right now.
Yeah, well, I know you were paddleboarding last week in Tahoe. So What school do surfers go to?
What school?
The boarding school.
Oh, bum. Oh, look, you got it. Cool.
How about you?
Well,
What do you got this week?
Well, what do you call a retired miner?
A retired miner. I have no clue.
A Doug.
A Doug.
I don't get that. I don't get
Doug,
it.
the miner's dig. So if he was a retired miner, he's
Oh
Doug.
boy, I'm so okay. I'm
Okay, how about a
so
lighter
sad.
one? Why was Laura Croft sad from the Tomb Raider?
Laura Croft.
Laura Croft.
Laura Croft. Yes.
I got
Why
too many
was she
freaking
sad?
crafts at our house right now.
Why? Why was she sad?
Because her career was in ruins.
Oh yeah. Okay.
All right, what are you going to finish us out with?
Okay. It annoys me when people say age is only a number. Why do you ask?
Yeah.
Because age is clearly a word.
Oh, yes, it is. Really quick. So that's like super literal, right? And we deal with that with Gavin all the time. And I started, no plug for the show, but Atypical on Netflix. Great show if you want to better understand the challenges that individuals that are on the autism spectrum experience. It's a really good show where he actually talks you through, well, I don't understand that because they do this. And anyways, little bit of literal education out there if people are interested and have Netflix, but
Atypical.
bye for now. Yeah.
All right.
Atypical. Talk
See
to
you
soon.
later.
All right. Bye-bye.